Hey everyone, in this video we're going to take a look at how to create a closed loop integration between Cine-Q and Mailchimp so that you can generate and send out personalized videos using Mailchimp. There will be three sections that we're going to cover. First, we're going to take a look at how to create custom fields in Mailchimp, and then we're going to have a look at how to create your emails. And then we'll go over to Cine-Q, we'll set up a trigger campaign that will generate the personalized videos and also set up the integration. And finally, we're going to do the end-to-end testing. So let's go over to Mailchimp. And in order to create custom fields, you need to click on Audience, click on Manage Audience on the right, click on Settings. And when you scroll down, you can see Audience Fields and Merge Tags. This is where you can create your custom fields. Now let's go over to campaigns and have a look at how to set up a campaign that will work for this integration. As we can see, we already created a campaign for this demonstration. So let's click on Edit and take a note of the trigger. It says if any of the subscribers Cine-Q campaign ID field, which is one of the custom fields that we created earlier, changes to this long string, then they will receive this email. Now this long string is going to come from Cine-Q. We'll come back to that in a moment. Let's have a look at the email itself. You can see that it's a very basic email, just an image on the top, a bit of text. We're addressing the audience by their first name, and we also included an image. Now the important thing in here is that behind this image there is a link, and this link is using one of the custom fields that we created earlier, which will also be populated by Cine-Q. So let's go over to Cine-Q and take a look at how to create a trigger campaign. We'll use this campaign that we created earlier for this demonstration, but take a note of the URL. This section of the URL is the campaign ID, which is being used in the trigger in Mailchimp. When we go over to the segments, we can see that the Cine-Q camp trigger field has to be send me MC demo. And this is going to be very important because when we create a new record for testing purposes in Mailchimp, we have to make sure that this field is going to be populated exactly how it is over here. The message itself has already been prepared. The video is done. We can have a look at the personalization. We can see that we're using the first name to address the viewer by the name, as well as a temporary date field because we can repurpose that field. And when we go over to executions, this is where we can set up the campaign to be trigger based. We'll set a date in the past, let's say Sydney time zone, and run until, and we will set this date for in the future. Once we click on create, then basically this campaign is now active. If we click on add, then we can see that Mailchimp is not yet available as an integration because we haven't set it up yet. So let's go over to data, click on integrations, and we need to click on new integration, and we will select Mailchimp, click on create, and click on the settings icon. In order to set up this configuration, first we need to grab the list ID from Mailchimp. So let's go back to Mailchimp, and to locate the list ID, you need to click on Audience, Manage Audience, click on Settings, and you scroll all the way down to the bottom, and this is where we can find the list ID. So let's just enter in here and then click Save. Once this is saved, then we can go back and click on Authorize. We just need to click on Login, and using our Mailchimp credentials, click on Allow. And there we go. Now we have Cine-Q connected to Mailchimp. To set up the integration, we have two parts. First, we can get member data from Mailchimp, and the second part is we push member data to Mailchimp. So in the first one, that's where we will receive the trigger that will trigger the campaign in Cine-Q. And the second part is when we push the personalized URLs to Mailchimp. So let's set up the field mapping for the get member data. First, we're going to enable the schedule. In Cine-Q, if you have an integration already set up, but for some reason you need to pause it, then you can just click on this button in here and then it will temporarily disable the integration. So let's say that we want to pull the data from MailChimp at midnight Sydney time every single day, and we want to do the mapping based on email address. And there are a few fields that are required fields to be mapped. CRN is one of them, so let's map it to our CRN field in Cine-Q. So on the left side we can see the MailChimp fields, on the right side we can see the Cine-Q fields. Let's map the first name, let's say the last name, and the PURL is going to come from Cine-Q, so we don't need to map that. We do need to map the Cine-Q trigger because that's the field that is going to trigger our Cine-Q campaign. So that's pretty much, oh yes, and the email we need to also map. So that's pretty much it on the get member data side. Now on the push member side, it's a little bit easier because all we need to do is map the CRN field and the personalized URL field, as well as the campaign ID field, which will be the Cine-Q campaign ID field, and that is going to trigger the MailChimp campaign as we saw earlier. Now we do want to save this as a preset, MailChimp, just in case we need to set up another MailChimp integration with another MailChimp list or another MailChimp account. So let's click on save. And we can see that now this little circle in here turned green from orange. So this should be available if we go back to our campaign and we click on executions, click on add. Now we can see MailChimp in here. So let's select it. And there we go. From now on, when this campaign runs, then the relevant data will automatically be sent over to MailChimp. What we also need to make sure is that there is a webhook set up in MailChimp which will trigger the API calls from Cine-Q to MailChimp. So let's go over to the settings and click on this copy to clipboard, which will grab the webhook URL, and go over to MailChimp, click on webhooks. This is under audience and audience settings. So let's create a webhook. We just paste the URL in there, and basically every single time when there are changes to the subscribers or the contacts in MailChimp, then the webhook is going to be called, which will enable Cine-Q to pull the relevant data into Cine-Q from MailChimp, and that will trigger the campaign if the segmentation criteria is met. We're now pretty much ready to test our closed-loop integration between Cine-Q and MailChimp, so let's go ahead and create a new subscriber. The only important thing with the subscriber is that we're going to have to make sure that we do have a CRN number. That's a required field in Cine-Q, and we will also make sure that the Cine-Q trigger field is matching exactly what we have in the Cine-Q campaign segmentation criteria. So let's just paste it in here, and we will also set the insurance or theoretical insurance renewal date to 1st of July, and we have to make sure that this checkbox is checked. So let's click on subscribe, and this should call the Cine-Q webhook, which will pull the data from MailChimp. So let's go over to Cine-Q, and there we go. We can already see that the data has been pulled into Cine-Q. And if we go over to the campaigns, click on our campaign, then we can see that under execution, this campaign is already running. Generating personalized videos take a little bit of time, but in this particular demonstration, we're using a very short video, so it will not take long. we can see that the execution completed. So if we click on the MailChimp logo in here, we can see the timeline, the events that took place. We can see the API calls as well as any errors, but it seems like everything went smoothly. So let's go over to MailChimp and we can see that under campaigns, this is our campaign, that the trigger campaign that we set up earlier. And if we go over to view report, we can see that one subscriber has already received this email. So let's click on who that subscriber is. Cine-Q.demo plus 0001. That is exactly what we wanted to see. So let's go over to our email. We can see that the email came through. That's nice. Although Gmail seems like it doesn't appreciate it as much as I do. Let's click on the image which had the personalized video URL behind it. And we are now on a Cine-Q landing page playing the personalized video that we built in Cine-Q. We can see that the video has been addressed to the correct person and the renewal dates are also being displayed as expected. And you can also add call to action buttons to your personalized videos using Cine-Q. So this is how you set up a closed loop integration between Cine-Q and Mailchimp. Thank you for watching.